Hi everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Okay, so I've been hearing a lot of queries from people saying you're not able to connect to the database, having issue in installing and all of that. So hope you all have resolved that issue. If anybody is still having the issue, please raise your hands. I'll let you speak and we'll fix it. Because having SQL Server installed is very important. Okay, before that, I'll show you few things you need to check. Okay, for your SQL Server to work properly. After you installing the SQL Server, there are two things, right? We installed SQL Server. This is the SQL Server DB engine. This we installed first. SQL. For that, what was the name that we gave? That is important. You need to remember that name. We gave the instance name as, in my case, I had given it as MS SQL 2022. Okay, I changed it to this name. If you don't change it and you are installing it for the first time, by default it will take it as MS SQL Server. And here it is not case sensitive, so don't worry. So this one we installed. After that, we installed one more thing called SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS. Okay, SQL Server Management Studio, using which we connected to this database. Right, when you click on connect, here we were giving the server name and the database name. What was it we're giving? If your instance name is this, so you need to use dot, which indicates your local system, backslash, then MS SQL 2022 you need to give to connect. And also while after giving this server name and the instance name, you need to choose the authentication mode also. There are different authentication modes. One is SQL Server authentication, other one is Windows authentication. If you have added, while installing this, we were also doing one more thing as add current user. If you remember, add current user to admin. Okay, so if you add it, it will automatically take current user. Then in the authentication mode, if you select Windows, it will automatically connect. If you have not added this, let's say you have not added this, in this case, with a Windows user, you can't directly connect to this database. Then you should use, there was one more login we created, right? SA, for SA, system admin. We use the password as something like this, right? 0RD, something like this. You can use this. For this, you need to choose SQL Server authentication mode. Right? So then only it will work. So if you have given different name here and you try to connect with this, it won't connect because it will definitely not find this server name and instance name. Okay, try this quickly. If you have not, if you have missed something while connecting, try this, try doing this and let me know if this solves the issue. And one more thing before that, just notice here, one more thing, you can go to the services. Here in the services, your SQL Server service should be running. See here. In the services, you will see your instance names. Even if you don't, like if you don't remember which name you have given, you can check from here. So in my case, this one, SQL Server 2022. Okay, and it should be running. Here the status should be running. If it is not running, then you will not be able to connect to the database. If it is not running, you can right click on it and you can start it. For me, start is disabled right now, but for you, you can start it. Right? Can you do this? After this, if you still see issue, let me know. Raise your hands. We'll fix it and then proceed further. Okay, where is service? You need to go to search bar here below. Here, search for services. If you are using Windows 11, just search here for services. You will find this service. Click on it. It will open up this one. Then scroll down and search for SQL Server. If you're on Windows 10, I think you'll have to use Windows R, and here you need to search for services.msc, I think. Yeah, services.msc. If you're on Windows 10, you don't see the search bar, then do Windows R. It will open up this command prompt. Type services.msc and click OK. It will open up this services window. If you have not changed this service setup while installing to manual or something, then by default it will be automatic and it will be running. Only if you have changed it to manual, see here you have the startup type, right? So while installing also it will show this. By default it is automatic. If you have changed it to manual, then it would not start when you start your system. Right, all good? Okay, let's get started. So after installing, if I go search here for SSMS, you will find this. See here, importantly, the server type, you need to select database engine while connecting. So there are other things as well: analysis services, reporting services, integration services, Azure SSIS integration runtime and all that. We have not installed any of this. In my case, I've installed this, but in your case, we have not installed any of this. We have only installed the database engine. So by default, of course, server type will be database engine. If something else is selected, make sure you select the database engine. And here the server name, you need to give dot indicating local host, your current computer, local computer, backslash, then the instance name that you have given while installing the SQL Server. If you do not remember, you can go to the services. Here, scroll down, search for SQL Server. Here, you will see instance name in the parenthesis. So I have installed 2019, 2022, 2022 _2. These are all the instances that I have. In your case, you would be looking into only this. I mean, you would be seeing only this because this is what you have installed. Okay, so this is your instance name. This you need to take if you don't remember the name, of course. So then the authentication type is Windows authentication. While installing, if you have selected the mixed authentication, then even if you select Windows authentication and click connect, it will work because by default it will take your current user as a login ID. If not, if you just use the SQL Server authentication and given some password to the SA account, select this, or you have given any username over there, so then you can use it. Maybe you can use it SA. This is the by default account. Then you can give the password whatever you have given. But if you have selected the mixed authentication, Select the Windows authentication and click connect. This will work. It will connect to this database. Okay. Now, so we have seen the overview of this in the last session, that what is this, what do we have, and all of that, right? So we created the database also last time. We created this test DB, right? No, not this. We created my database, right? So inside this we created a few tables. Actually, employee table we created. Yeah, employee and department tables we created. We saw how to create database, how to create table, and how to insert the records. Now, I'd also asked you to download the sample database. So where do you download it from? Hope all you have downloaded it. That's for SQL Server sample databases. You'll get this link, click on it. Here you'll have all the sample databases. So you can download this. Okay, AdventureWorks 2022.bak. Let me click on it. So what is this .bak file, by the way? Microsoft would have created these databases, tables, views, procedures, everything, and they take a backup of that database. That's what is this .bak file, and they'll publish it here, so we can download this backup file and we can restore it. Okay, and we'll see this database in our system. Go here. Yeah, AdventureWorks actually I had already downloaded. It's the same thing. So I'll use this. How do I use that? If you right click on the databases here, right click on restore database. Here you can restore from the existing databases itself. That's why it says databases, and in the drop down it shows existing databases. Or you can click on device. If you have it as a .bak file or in some other drive, you can choose the device, then click on this here to choose the file or the URL. Okay, in my case it is a file. Then click on add. Then from here you need to find the location where you have downloaded it. In my case, C drive users. This is my username. Okay, or all users. Just a moment. Default user. Or what you can simply do is you can search for, you can take this URL, paste it here, I mean the path, hit enter. This is not working. One moment. It should be generally under users and your current user. Inside that you should see downloads and all that. Okay, what you can do is one more thing. Copy this, cut it, paste it somewhere in some other drive where you can easily access it. So let's say I'll put it inside here. Okay, then go to the D drive, expand D drive, click on this. This is the one. Okay, I'll start over. So once you click on restore database, you will see this link, this page. Here, click on the device, click on this, and the backup media type is file. Then click on add. Then you need to go to the folder where you have saved the backup file. Select this, click OK, then click OK. See, now automatically it has identified what is the database it contains inside that. And in the destination database, you can give a different name if you want to store it as different name, but I'll just keep it as it is. Now it says it is ready, and click on OK. Now database AdventureWorks 2022 restored successfully. Click OK. Now I'll see a database called AdventureWorks 2022 here in my databases list. If I expand this, see, these are all the tables that we have. Department, employee, person address type, person phone. There are so many tables, and even if I expand views, there are many views. These are all created by the Microsoft. Okay, and they publish it for the public use. So now if I look into, let's say, salesperson.person, if I want to look into the data of this, what I can do, I can either click on this new query, choose the database from here and type select star from. You can drag and drop from here, or you can directly type also. So it is showing this table's information. You can do this, or you can simply right click on this table, click on select top 1000 rows. If you click on this, it will open up another query window. Here it will automatically creates a query for you. It says select top 1000 and all the column names, and the data that you're seeing, you will only see top 1000 records because you're seeing top 1000 only. You're writing, your query says top 1000 records, so that's why it will show only top 1000 records. That's what you see here. Okay, so now we are going to work with this database. Let me close this. So there are different tables in this. I'll come to that later, but before that, let's understand few basic querying things. Then we will understand what is this human resource, what is this person, what is the production, what is sales, etc. Now we know how to select the data from the table, right? So we do select star from person. Okay, if you remember, we were discussing about DDL, DML, DQL, and TCL. Data definition language, data manipulation language, data querying language, transaction control language. So in the DDL, what do we have? Create, drop. This we saw in the last session. DML, data manipulation language. What do we have here? Insert, update, delete. In the DQL, data querying language, select. Then TCL, transaction control language. Here we have grant, revoke. Okay, so these we have seen in the last session. So in today's session, we'll look into the select. Okay, and then there are different clauses of select and all that. So here in this query, I have written select star from table. Star indicates all the columns from this table. Okay, if I hover my mouse on the star, see here it is showing me all the columns in this table, person not person table. If you just use star, it is like you telling SQL Server to show all of these columns. Okay, if you select, for example, if you do select, let's say business entity ID, business entity ID, person type, first name, last name, from, person. It has to be person not person. If I execute this, I'll only see these columns 1, 2, 3, 4, because I'm selecting only these 4 columns from this table. Okay, and when you are using multiple columns, you need to use comma, then only it will consider this as another column. Let's say if I remove this one, this comma, and if I try to execute this, what it is showing? It is showing only 3 columns, even though we have specified 1, 2, 3 and 4 columns. Why? It is taking this column, it is actually showing this column data only, but it is giving the name as person type to this column. So this is called as aliasing of the column. Okay, what I mean to say by that is, let's say I copy this query. Let's say I have a business entity ID. So I want to, when I query, so it says business entity ID. Let's say business entity ID column, I want to show it as, I don't want to show it as business entity ID. I just want to show it as entity ID, for example. Entity ID. So I need to use this as keyword. Okay. Click on it. See here, business entity ID column is showing as entity ID here in the result. And others are same. So this is called as aliasing of the column. Now this as keyword is not mandatory. If I remove this as, it is optional. If I remove this as, so this column name is showing as this one. Okay, so similarly, if you do not use, let's say when we had like this earlier, if you remove the column, it will consider this name, even though it is another column's name, it will consider this as alias for this column. Even though it shows this column data, it will be named as this. See here, that is why you need to use comma to separate columns. That is alias. Now let me copy this. Okay, so in this we are seeing all the records. So if you want to see only records where the email promotion equals to 1, so that what we should do, there is something called where clause. We need to use where clause, where, and you need to use email promotion equals to 1. Now it will show all the records where email promotion is 1. If I use email promotion equals to 2, It will show all the records with email promotion 2, like this. Okay. You can also use email promotion greater than 2, for example, or greater than 1, or greater than or equal to, not equal to, all that. So this is greater than 1. If you use greater than or equal to, this is, it will also include 1. Then if you use this, it is not equals to 1, like except 1, others it will show like 0, 2, all that. Okay, so we have equals to, greater than or equals to, less than or equals to, not equals to. Okay, and there is one more called between. Let's say I want to see the business entity ID between 10 and 15. Okay, you can use this between also. This is also an operator. Now if I execute this, it will show the records between 10 and 15. Okay, this is between. And let's say there is one more. Let's say I want to see, I don't want to see between, let's say I want to see where business entity ID equals to 10, or, so here we are using and. You can also use comparison operators, or, sorry, the logical operators, or business entity ID equals to 2, or business entity ID equals to 12 and business entity ID equals to 17, for example. If you execute this, how many records it will show? It will show 3 records, because what are we doing here? We are returning a record whose business entity ID is either 10 or 12 or 17. Okay. So we can use like this, or the same thing we can write in another way. Here, instead of equals to and or conditions, I can write in. There is an operator called in. After the operator in, what you need to do, within the parenthesis, you need to enter the values 10, 12, comma 17. It is exactly same as this one. If I execute this, it will give 3 records. If I execute these together, see, exactly same records it is retrieving. Okay, instead of using something like this, when you have multiple values to be specified, you can use in operator. Okay, so along with this, so you can also use multiple conditions. Right now we are only using one column. You can also use multiple columns in the where clause. For example, let's say if I take this, here 3 records I'm getting. Let's say in these 3 records I also want to see the records where the middle name is not null. That means we have some value for the middle name. So what I can do, I can copy paste this. I'll type and. I can use one more condition, and middle name is not null. Okay, so for the null value, we don't say middle name equals to null, because you cannot compare null value, okay, with something, because null is unknown. So we say is not null. Okay, so we are using 2 columns here, where business entity ID is this and middle name is not null. Then how many records we'll get from here? From this query, we'll get only 2 records, because it removes the other row where the middle name was null. Okay, this is how we use the where condition. Can you try this quickly? First, what you need to do, you need to first restore the database. After restoring, then write these queries. I'll just keep them open. Okay, how do you restore? Right click on the databases, restore database, then select the device, then from here choose your backup file, click on add and choose the backup file, click OK. It will show the, then click OK here, it will show the database name and everything. Just click on OK. It will restore the database as AdventureWorks 2022. Okay, yes, right, Tejas. Print comes under DQL and grant and revoke are part of DCL, data control language. Sorry, under the TCL we have the begin tran and begin tran, rollback, commit, all that will come. Of course, we don't have commit here in SQL. In other databases we have it as commit. We have begin tran, rollback. Okay, those come under TCL. Suggestions you will get it when you are typing. If not, under the tools, under options, somewhere there is something called IntelliSense. You can search for IntelliSense. Yeah, here under the text editor, under the transact SQL, there is this IntelliSense option. Click on this. It should be enabled. By default, it will be enabled. If it is disabled by any chance, enable this and click OK. Then you will see those suggestions. And sometimes, even though you enable that, you don't see IntelliSense sometimes. But if you close and open SSMS, it will work. But most of the cases, 90% of the time, it will show the suggestion. Avanisina, yes. What is the issue? Just ping here. Invalid object person dot person. Just check in which database you are in. It should be inside the AdventureWorks database. So from here you need to, from this drop down, you need to choose AdventureWorks 2019. In your case, you have installed 2019, right? So it has to be 2019. Vishnu, you don't have to paste it within the backup folder only. You can paste it wherever you want. Okay, I just pasted it in D drive because I'm not able to find it from the download folder. Okay. Now, in the where clause, importantly, we have one more operator called like operator. Okay. I'm sure most of you know about this already. I'm just iterating this because there are many people who have joined who are new to the database. So that's why I'm showing you all of this. If I do select star from person table, and this result pane you are seeing here, right? So you can minimize it, maximize it, or if you type Control R, it will be removed. If you hit Control R again, it will come back. That's a shortcut. Now, let's say I want to see all the records whose name is starting with, let's say, D. Okay. So in that case, what I can do, select start from where first name equals to, if I give, for example, let's say this one Dylan, I have to paste it within the quotes, right? All the text values has to be pasted within the quotes. Execute this, it will only show the name the first name with Dylan. It won't show anything else. So I want to show anything which is starting with D. What I should do? I should use like operator. Then I use D and then percentage at the end. What this like operator will do is it will retrieve anything which is like this expression. Okay. So in the beginning we have D, after that we have mentioned the percentage. Percentage means anything after D. Okay, any character you can have after D. So if I execute this, see here, now I see Dylan, Diane, David, Doris, Dennis, all of this. Don. It will match with the first letter D, and after that you can have any characters or any number of characters. It will match all that and it will retrieve the data. Okay. If I use percentage in the beginning, now what happens? Any characters or any length of characters in the beginning, and at the end you should have D. It will retrieve all those records. See here, Edward, we have D at the end. Edward, Richard, David, Ted, correct? Brad, all of this. This is how we use like operator. Okay, and if you use percentage, both the sides, now what happened? It will match any characters in the beginning, and somewhere in the middle, if you have D, and any characters at the end. Or you can have D in the beginning. If you just have only D as the value in that column, it will also match that, because in the beginning you don't have anything, at the end also you don't have anything. So let's see, now it has returned 608 records, right? If I execute this, now you'll see 3961 records, because it is matching everything where there is D in the text, in this, wherever it can be. See here, for this OVDU, D is in between, so it has matched with this. For the Dylan, it is in the beginning, so it has still matched it with this. Andrew, D is here. Ed, Sydney, right? So this is how we use like operator. And if we use for the like operator also, let's say I use Dylan without percentages. If I use the text like this, it will only show for Dylan. It is as equivalent as using first name equals to Dylan. Okay. Only if you use it with percentage, then only it will match that record. Okay, so that is the like operator. Now, so there is one more operator. So we are doing currently select star from this table, right? So if you do star, it will show all the columns, all the rows. Let's say there are 19,997 rows. Let's say you want to see only the top 10 records. What you can do here, before the star, you can use top 10. Okay. Then you select execute this. It will only show the top 10 records. So I'm asking SQL Server to select or show me top 10 star. That means top 10 rows with all the columns. If I use top 100, it will show top 100. You can also write this number within the parenthesis. It's not mandatory, but you can write something like this also. Okay, this is the top operator. Now we have something called order by. Okay, of course you can use where clause. Let's say where percentage o percentage, something like this. So it is retrieving 5000 records. I want to sort these records, maybe based on the first name in the alphabetical order. So in that case, what I can do, I can use order by. This is another clause. These are called as clauses. Okay, these are called as clauses. Where clause? Order by clause. So in the order by, I specify first name. Okay, just notice what happens to this one, where right now I have the values. The first value is Robert and the business entity ID is 3. If I execute this, see here, now the business entity is showing it as 222 and the name that I'm seeing in the beginning is 𝐴.Scott. That means it is sorting all of these rows in the alphabetical order. Right? So now I see A in the beginning. Even though it is sorting, why should I see A in the beginning? It should have sorted, it should have shown in the other way around, right? Like where it should have shown the letter Z in the beginning. This is because by default it will sort it in the ascending order. So even though if you don't specify, once again, even though if you don't specify ascending, by default it will sort it in the ascending order. But if I specify descending, there are two keywords here actually, ASC meaning ascending. If I use DSC, it is descending. So if I use descending, now you'll see Watson in the beginning and the business entity is 7860. So it is only sorting, this one, 𝐫 in the beginning. So it is only sorting with respect to this column in the descending order, descending alphabetical order. Okay. So if you don't specify anything here, by default it is sorting it in the ascending order, right? So now I can use multiple columns for sorting. Let's say I use last name also here. One second. I use last name also here. Just notice what happens. Here I have A.Scott and last name Wright. If I execute this, For this one, there is nothing happening. Okay, let me just show you again. Only execute only this much. For Aaron, for row number 2, if you see, the last name it is coming as Khan. If I use last name also in the order by clause, now this what happens? Aaron is same. This is also sorting, but this is sorting with respect to this column, both in the ascending order. Okay. Now if I specify, you can also specify, let's say, descending for this. Execute this. Now it is sorted in the ascending order with respect to first name, and in the descending order with respect to the last name within this column. So within this column, this is sorted in the descending order. Right? Clear? Are you all following this? Okay, so you can use multiple columns here. Okay, so you can specify ascending, descending for each and every column. You can also specify the column position. Let's say instead of giving the column name, let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is fifth column, right? I can specify 5. And this is 6 and 7. I'll specify 7. See here, it will still work the same way. You can either give the name of the column or a position of the column. It will work both ways. Now, there is one more class called group by. Group by class. How will group by work? For that, maybe I'll use some other table to show that. Let's say if I go here, under this I have sales dot sales order header, for example. Let's see first what is there in this. Select star from. So in this table, we have all the sales details. There is a sales order ID, then some revision number. I think it is system generated. We have order date, due date, ship date, status of the order, online order flag. Means if the order is online, then you will have 1. If it is online sale, then you will have 0. Then sales order number, purchase order number, account number, customer ID, like who has purchased it, salesperson ID, territory ID, bill to address, ship to address. There are so many columns like that. Okay, so now let us see. I want to, okay, here we have these amount columns also: subtotal, tax amount, freight amount, and total due. Okay, subtotal, this tax amount on top of this, freight amount is the logistics amount, and total amount. Now I want to see, there is this salesperson ID, right? So I want to see this salesperson 279. I want to see how much sales this guy has made. So here I can use group by. Let's say I use sales person ID. But now if I just use salesperson ID in the group by, and if I execute this, let's see what happens. It will fail. What it is saying? It is saying the column sales dot order header dot sales order ID. That means this column is invalid in the select list because it is not contained in either an aggregate function or group by clause. That means whenever you use a group by clause, this column has to be in the select statement, and if you use any other columns, all other columns which are not there in the group by clause should be in the aggregate functions. Okay, I'll come to that, what I mean by that. So let's first, I'll just use this salesperson ID also in the star here in the select statement. If I execute this, what is happening? If you just see, if I just execute only the select statement without group by, it is showing me 31,465 rows. 31,465 rows. If I use it with a group by, it is only showing 18 records. Why? Anybody knows? Yes, you can use F5 to execute query, Rajnish. When you use only the column which you have in the group by in the select statement, what group by will actually do is it will show you the distinct values, okay, or unique values, and then with respect to that column it will group all other values. Okay, for example, I have the salesperson ID. After the comma, I use, there is something called sum. I'll tell you what it is. Sum, I'll use total U column. Okay, I call this as maybe total sales. I alias it as total sales. So now what is happening? For these 18 records, I'm doing the sum of the other records and showing it. How this will actually work is, let's say, this is my sales table, okay? And here in the sales table, I have sales ID. Okay, for now, let's just consider only these two columns, salesperson ID, then total due column. Okay, in this salesperson, let's say there is, what are the values we have? 284, 284, then the sales of 100, then this guy has made another sales 248, okay, 284, right? Okay, sorry, 284, 284. This guy had made another sale of 50,000 or 50, 284, another 100, something like that. This guy has 3 sales records. There's one more guy, 278. He has made 200 rupees sales. 278. He has made 100. 278. He has made another 50. Something like that. Let's take one more. 282. 282. This guy has done 200 sales. 282. 250. 282. 100. So this is the table that we have. For each sales that these guys made, there will be an entry in the sales table. Now when I do group by, what my query will do is, in the group by, what do we have? In the group by, we have salesperson ID. So it's first takes salesperson ID. Let's say this is my group by. It will take salesperson ID here. And it will make a list of unique records from here. Okay, so how many unique records? 284, 278 and 282. So 284, 278, 282. It will make a unique entry. Then in the group by, what I'm doing? I'm doing the aggregate function, which is sum of total due. So for these unique records, it does the sum of all those values. See, if I take 283, how many records I have? I have 3 records for this. For this, I have 3 records. For this, let's say I have something like this. So it does sum of these 3 records. How much it will come up? It will 250, right? It will become 250. If you add these 3 values, it will become 250. So that 250 will be added to this. Similarly, for this 278, we have 3 records. If you do sum of this, it will become 350. And for the last 3 records, if you do the sum of this, it will become 450 plus 100, 550 rupees or dollar. So this column, we have aliased it as total sales. So this is how this group by will work. So if you do not use this aggregate function, then what it will do? It will just show the distinct values from this column. So that is what was happening in the first query. When I did like this without the aggregate function, when I did like this, it only showed 18 records because there are 18 unique records, unique salesperson records in this table. If you use group by, if you use aggregate function along with that, for each of these values, it will do the grouping. If you use sum, it will add values in all of those rows. If you use, there is also called min, max, count. There are these aggregate functions. Okay. Sum is one, sum, min, max, average. Okay, average we have, but it is AVG. The function name is AVG. Then we have count. So these are the basic aggregate functions that we have. If you use sum, it will do the sum of those records, those values. If you do min, it will take the minimum value from all those records. If you use max, it will take the maximum record. If you take average, it will take the average. If you do count, it will take the count of it. For example, here, if I use min, max, average, count. So what is the minimum value in these three? 50. So I'll get 50 as the minimum value here. For this one, here also 50. For this one, what is the minimum value? 100 is the minimum value. Maximum, what is the maximum value in this? 100. So it will take 100. And in this case, 200. And in this case, 250. Okay, what is the average for this? 250 divided by 3. Okay, I'll just here. Sum of this. divided by 3. This is the average value. 83.33. If you use integer data type, then it will become 83 only. Same thing for this as well. This is the average value. For the count, we have 3 records, so we'll have 3 count here, 3 count here, 3 count here. What will count do? It will just count how many records you have for that particular value. Okay, so in the same query, if I change it to min total due, max total due, average total due, and count of, you can use any column for this count. You can also use star or 1, anything you can use for the count. It will just do the count of records. Execute this. See here. For these we don't have, it is saying no column name because after the aggregate function we have not given any aliasing of it. So it is saying no column name. Here you can give min amount, max amount, average amount, and this is record count. See here, for this salesperson, this is the total amount, sum of it. The minimum sale that he has done is $35.674741. Maximum sale order is 11. How much it is? 119,641. And this is average is 18,629 is his average sales order. Then how many sales he has done? 140 sales he has done, and so on. For others also it is the same thing. So this is the group by clause. Are you all clear with this? Any questions? Yeah, here in SQL Server it is top 10 to select the top values, whereas in MySQL or Postgres as well as in Oracle it is limit. I mean, at the end of the query we'll write limit 10, limit 20, something like that. Okay. Now in the group by also you can use multiple columns. For example, let's say here this is salesperson, right? So let me do select star from okay, we have salesperson. Let's say we have this territory also. Let's see how many territories we have. Territory ID. If I execute this, so it will show 31,000. So let's say I want to see how many unique territory IDs are there in this table. So you can type distinct. Distinct territory IDs, it will show there are 10 territory IDs. Okay, so now I want to show these values. Instead of salesperson ID, let's say I want to show this by territory ID. By each region, So now I change this to territory ID from salesperson. Execute this. So now I'm seeing these values by territory ID. For each territory ID, it is grouping now. Earlier it was grouping for each salesperson where we were seeing 18 records, but here it is grouping for territory ID. There are 10 territory IDs, so you are seeing 10 records here. But now this is not in the proper order, right? So you can use order by clause on top of this. Order by. If you want to sort it by territory ID, you can use territory ID. By default, it will be ascending. You don't have to specify ASC. Now you see it in the ascending order. If you want to see it in the descending order or ascending order of the total sales, you can do that also. You can use total sales. Let's say descending order. I want to see the territory which is having the highest sales in the beginning. And now the territory ID 4 is having the highest sales, which I'm showing in the beginning. Now, along with this territory ID, let's say within this territory ID, I also want to group it by a salesperson. I have a territory ID, 10 territory IDs. Within each territory is a geographical region, right? So within that there are, let's say, 2-3 salespersons working. So I want to see by their within this sales territory, I want to see by salesperson also these values. So let's say if I add salesperson ID here, again if I just execute this, it won't work. Okay, it will work, but it is little confusing. See, okay, for example, I'll come to this later. Let me just add salesperson ID here. I was trying to show you this actually. If I execute this, this won't work. What it says, the column sales order header dot salesperson ID. That means this column. Each column is referred in the database by like this. Database, the schema name, then the table name, and then the column name. And sometimes you'll also see database names dot schema name dot table name dot column name. That's how it is referenced internally. What it is saying, this column is invalid in the select list because it is not contained in either an aggregate function or the group by clause. That means all the columns in the select statement which are not part of these aggregate functions should be present in your group by. That means any column that you're using, that has to be either part of your group by or it has to be put within the aggregate function. Since salesperson ID is not part of the aggregate function, so it is not working. Are you all getting this? Any column you use with the group by clause, that has to be added here in the group by clause. If you add it in the select clause, it has to be within the aggregate functions, or else it will not work. Okay, so now if I use it here in the territory ID, now this column is part of the group by, so then there should not be any issue. If I execute this, no issue at all. Why? I'm using this column as part of the group by. But here it is little confusing because if earlier for the territory ID we were seeing only 10 records. Now how many records we are seeing? Now we are seeing 45 records. Why? Because within each territory we are also splitting this grouping on salesperson ID also. Okay, but since we are not selecting the salesperson ID In the select statement, we are not seeing that salesperson ID. That's why it is little confusing. So if I, for example, if I group this by territory ID and in the ascending order, see here, there are 7 records for territory 1, and there are, I think, how many records? 4 records for territory ID 2, 6 records for territory ID 3, 6 records for territory ID 4, 5 records for territory ID 5, and so on. That means there are 7 salespersons within a territory ID 1. There are 4 salespersons in territory 2. There are 6 salespersons in territory 3. And these values are grouped for each of those salesperson. That's why it is showing these multiple records. So if I use this salesperson ID here in the select statement, if I execute this, can you see now? Now in this territory, I also see the salesperson details, and for each of these salesperson, these values are aggregated. And you are also seeing null here. Null means where there is no salesperson involved. Maybe it's an online sale. Like this, we can also group by values at multiple levels. You can keep on adding. So here, after this, you can also add, let's say, customer, that is customer ID. Each salesperson would have catered to multiple customers, right? So if you use this customer ID here, now I'll use all of these here in the group by. Let's skip null for now. Okay. If you take territory 10, for example, for territory 10, let's say for this salesperson 282, there are actually 2 salesperson only. For this salesperson in territory 2, sorry, territory 10, this salesperson 282 has catered to these many customers, and these customers would have multiple records. So now I'm seeing this group data by territory, by salesperson, by customer ID. This is how you can use group by at multiple levels. So for example, if you see here, it will show the record count, it will show, right? So this person, this customer has done 7 transactions. Out of which, this is the total sales, this is the minimum sale, this is the maximum sale, and this is the average sale. And this guy, he has done 8 transactions. This guy has done only 1 transaction. For that, that's why it is showing same value for all. Since there is only one value, total is also same, minimum is also same, maximum is also same, and even average is also. Clear with this? Understanding group by is very, very important in SQL because we very frequently use this group by clause in our day-to-day life in SQL. Any questions on this? Can you all hear me? Okay. Are you understanding? Are you getting what I'm trying to say here with the group by? Okay, great. So It might take little time for you to understand this if you are very new to this SQL. What you need to do is you need to practice this with different tables. Let's say we have this sales order header. You can practice with this sales order detail. There are different tables, right? You can try with that. Try adding different columns to the group by and to the order by and see what happens by yourselves. Then only you will get more used to it. But at the very high level, this is what it does. Not at the very high level. Actually, this is what it does. Now, there is one more class called having class. Has anybody heard about it? Why do we use it? Okay, Shweta says filter class. Okay. Yes, it is filter class. Okay, condition over the group by, correct? In place of where class. Not in place of where class. Where class is different, this is different. For condition with aggregate function with group by. Okay. Having class. So we have this where class, right? So where do we use this where class? We use this where class to filter the data directly from this table. Whatever table we have in the from class, to filter the data from this from class, we use the where condition. Okay. But we use this filter, we use this having clause to filter the data which is aggregated using the group by. So I have this table created. This is the group by table, right? Let me just remove a few columns from here. Let's say I'll remove salesperson and customer ID just to keep it simple. I'm just removing these columns. Comma is missing. Okay, so I have this. Now on top of this group data, let's say if you want to filter this group data, you can use the having clause. Where will I have the you add the having clause? After the group by. Having. Let's say this is my group data, right? After using the group by in the territory ID in the group by, and doing the sum of total dues, min, max, and all that. And in this, I want to see all the records whose minimum amount is greater than 2, for example, or maybe greater than 4. Minimum sale amount should be greater than 4. In that case, what I should do? I should is having clause minimum greater than 4. If I execute this, how many records I should get? If I execute this, how many records I'm getting? I'm getting only 4 records. Sorry, 3 records whose minimum amount is greater than 4. Without the having clause, I'm getting 10 records which is grouped by territory ID. In fact, I have all the records, but now I'm applying a filter on top of this group data where I'm checking if my minimum total due amount is greater than 4. That's when it is returning only 3 records. Just remember, in the having clause, it will only work with, first of all, group by. You should have the group by. It will work on top of that. And then you should use this aggregate functions within this having clause. If you use, for example, let's say if you just use minimum total is greater than 4, will it work? It won't work. What it says here, the total due that I'm using here is invalid in the having clause because it is not contained in either an aggregate function or the group by clause. Okay, so if I use territory ID, for example, here, this will work because the column that you're using in the having clause should be part of your group by clause or should be part of your aggregate function. Then only it will work here. But generally we don't filter like this. We don't, because we want to group by everything and only want to look based on these values. So that's when we mostly use these aggregate functions only, either sum, min, max, average, whatever. So I'm using minimum in this case. Like this. Clear? You can also use multiple conditions. Let's say you can use and. Let's say I want to see where the record count is more than 2000, for example. Count star is greater than 2000. Now, how many records I should get? 2 records. Great, because just with this condition, there is this row where there are only 385 transactions. Okay, so here I'm adding one more condition to check if the transactions are more than 2000. I mean sales. Now I'll get only 2 records. Baba Yadav, no, we cannot use where instead of the having clause because where is used only to filter at the table level. Having is used to filter the data which is grouped using the group by. See, whatever data, if I run it if I run it without this, see, this is the group data, right? I'm grouping it, I'm filtering this group data actually using the having clause. If you use where, it won't work. Yeah, only for territory ID, of course, you can use the where clause that is there. Right? Any questions? Shall we move ahead? Okay. Now, what is the order of query execution? Do you know how query gets executed? Even though I've written this query, where SQL Server will start executing it? What is the order? Which clause it will first look into? See, we have these different clauses, right? Sorry. We have select, from, group by, having, order by. Which one it will take first? And then which one it will select next? What is the order of the execution? Okay, of course, yeah, from, fine. Okay, then after from, Okay, Prakash says select. Okay, after that someone says group by, someone says where. No, just give me complete list. Like it starts from then what class we have, this class, right? How many we have? 1 2 3 4 5 we have. Just don't type only one single thing, just type all those 5 like in the order that it executes. Okay, Mohammed says from where, group by, order by, then select. From join. Okay, join, yes, we have not talked about it yet. From group by, having, select, order by. From where, group by, select, and then order by. Limit is the last, we don't have limit. Okay, if at all we had that also. Okay, let's say top 5 for example. Okay, 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 most of you are right. Great. Ayush has taken screenshot directly from a web and posted it here. Why did you delete it anyway? Yeah, it is still there. Yeah. Okay, so whether, okay, so first we know that, okay, it will start from the from class. It will start from here. First it will select, when you execute this, okay, for others who are not aware of this, when you execute this query, for example, when I do click on execute this, so it executes this, right? So when I execute it, it will first start at this one. It will not start executing from this from the select statement. It will actually start from here. First it will select which table that you are looking into. Okay, this is from class, and join is also part of your from class only. Okay, so it will start here. Then, okay, let's say I have where also here, where character ID is greater than 3, for example. Then it will go to the next step. First is from, then it will go to the where class. So from that table it will filter using this where class. Let's say I want to see territory ID which is greater than 3. Then it will only take those values which are greater than 3. This is the second thing. Then it will group by. If at all you have used, like if you have not used the group by, that's fine. But if you use group by, then it will group that data, the filtered data, it will group based on the column that you specify. Okay, and after that, if you have having clause, that group data will be filtered again. Where clause filters the base table, having clause filters the grouped data. Okay, then based on this value, it will select the values. Based on these conditions, it will select those values. Then after selecting these values, then it will order by. Then it will limit. This is the 7th. Correct? This is the order of execution of the query. It is important to understand this as well. Okay, whether select is first or order is first. How do we make sure whether select executes first or order by executes first? Which one executes first? Select or order by? Okay, select, then only order by. Okay, let us see. Let's consider for a moment that select executes first. That means before order by. That means we have used the alias to this column. So if this executes before the order by, if I can use this alias column also, because it already knows that for this column I've given the name as this one. Okay, for example, in the order by clause I use this one, sum of total due in the descending order. If I execute this, it will work. Now if I use this alias name instead of this actual column, I'll use alias, this one. This will still work. Why? Because before executing the order by, your select has executed. That's when it already knows that for this column you have given name as total sales. That is why it is working even if you give this name. But if you give, for example, if you use total sales here, for example, in the where clause, if you use total sales greater than, let's say, 1000. See, it's already giving error here. It says invalid column name because it doesn't know. See, let me execute this and show you. When I execute this, it says invalid column total sales, because at this step, it doesn't know that there is a column alias given as total sales, because this step has not even executed. You're still immediately after this, you're here in the where clause only. So this where clause doesn't know that there is a column alias as this. That's why it won't work. Clear on this? So just to okay, 1 second. Just to confirm again, it will start from the from class, then where, then group by, then having class, then select. Remember this, always select and then order by. After that, top operator or the limit operator will work. Okay. Any questions till now? Are you all following? Okay. Just to recap what we did today, we learned where class, different operators in where class. Then we learned order by, group by, having class, and then the order of execution. Okay, I'll save this query. You also keep on saving the query that you're working on so that you have it handy for reference later. I call this as master query. Okay, fine then. So if you do not have any questions, we can wind up today's session. And thank you so much for joining in. See you tomorrow.